Hello everyone, it's Limsey here and welcome back to my channel. It's another day for another watercolor painting, and today I'm going to share with you on how to create a Dreamy Twilight Landscape watercolor painting. You could check out more details of the supplies that I use in the description box below. Here I start off by using some masking tape to secure the paper, as we are going to use lots of wet on wet technique later. And I would also like to create a white border around the paper once it is completed. We're going to paint the sky, so first of all, we will need to dampen our paper. Here I use my biggest brush and dab some plain water without any color, and spread a good amount of water across the upper half area of the paper. Now this is a very important process as we prep our paper to get ready for the wet on wet technique application later on. Next, let's squeeze out the paints that we need to use today, which is basically these two main colors. Here I will be using some Prussian blue from Holbein Artist Watercolor and some of this quinacridone scarlet that is almost like a crimson red. We will start off with Prussian blue. Give it a good mix with water on your palette well. As we are painting large areas of color, you could make it slightly more diluted than our usual mix and revisit your paint mix to add more paint and water along the way. While the paper is still wet, paint this blue with your biggest brush across the paper. I'm using size 10 round brush from Princeton Heritage. I'm basically repeating this diagonal brush strokes across the sky with this dark deep blue color. Now add in some scarlet red into the palette well, and again spread a good amount of red and let it blend with the Prussian blue to create this dreamy gradient across the sky. As you imagine, the sun is right below the horizon and the sky turns from dark to fiery red. And then just wait and let it dry for a few minutes before we move on to painting the mountain range. While the paper is still damp, use this opportunity to add some tonal values for both the blues and reds once you're finished painting to almost the middle part of the paper. After it is dried, blend the same two colors, which is the Prussian blue and scarlet red, to create this rich purple color. And starting from the edge of the paper, paint a mountain range and create a peak, and go down again and then go up to create another mountain peak. It looks like creating a silhouette style for the mountain. You can apply the same paint again to add in some depths for the mountains. And then let's wait again for it to be dried up. And then from here, you can create another row of mountain range. And perhaps for this, it could be just one mountain peak in between the two peaks behind. So just take your time to blend in the colors and let the water flow and do the magic itself. Moving on to the third row, this mountain range will have a lower peak, more of like a highland, so that it will be easier for us to paint trees on this range. So just spread a good amount of purple, and I'm also using this purple that is slightly bluish to give it a bit of variation. And here comes the most detailed area of our painting. So now change your brush to the smallest size, probably size 2 or 4. And we're going to paint lots of tree silhouettes from here. So these trees look like pine trees, but they're very far away and you don't need to be super precise. Just paint out a vertical line for the main stem and do a lot of zigzags to create this irregular horizontal lines like we're painting trees from far away. You can also dot a bit or taper around in between the trees. This is actually one of my favorite things to paint. So some trees could be taller, some shorter, some with a gap in between, but the point is to paint them in perfectly, like an impression of a faraway forest. So just take your time to paint the row of trees on this mountain range. Now once when we're done with the trees, take the remaining paint and create these shadows underneath the trees. Like what I'm doing here, I'm just using the remaining paint to dab around to create an extra gradient in between the trees and the mountain. And when it's done, let's wait for it to dry up. So from here onwards, we are going to repeat the same process of what we did for the highland and trees. Just create another highland silhouette with very low peaks, and then line up the trees on top again. Now moving on to the last row, which is the foreground. It is pretty much the same, but I'm adding more blue for this row to give it a bit more variation and distinction as compared to the backgrounds behind. And the trees could also be slightly larger as they are all nearer to us, which is the viewer. And once you're done with all the mountains and trees, use the remaining paint to layer anywhere should you feel necessary. Last but not least, here comes the favorite part for most of us. We will need to create some stars and meteors on the sky to make it look even more magical. Here I'm using my brush to dab in this white gouache paint, which is also by Holbein. You can also use anything with an opaque base, like a white acrylic paint or color pencil, as you want them to be obvious and contrasting against the twilight background. Dab a good amount of water and white gouache and use your finger to flick the brush and create a good splatter of white dots across the sky. You can also use an old toothbrush to create a similar effect. Have fun and go crazy with this part. And again, I am dabbing in some more paint, and this time round, paint out some long and slender meteors on the sky. Just a few we will do for the extra magical effect. And yeah, we are finally done, guys. When it's all dried up, remove your masking tape and you will get these crisp white borders, and your painting looks instantly presentable. I hope that you have enjoyed this twilight landscape painting. If you post it on social media, remember to hashtag LiveWithLimsey or LoveLimsey so that I could check out your work. Also, do like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching and learning together. I will see you real soon. Be kind to one another and bye bye.